And of course, this is deeply emotional, this moment for many Cuban Americans.
Young and old headed straight for the place that's been a rallying point so many times before, Cafe Versailles in Little Havana, of course. Mike Cugno has been with them for hours now. And Mike, how have people been reacting?
Well, right now it's very thin. The crowd has obviously thinned out from the wee hours of the morning. We got here around 1:30, and one City of Miami official told us at its peak they thought more than 1,000 people were out here on the streets. Now, if we take a look from our chopper cam, you can see that number is significantly lower, but it could grow in the coming hours as people begin to hear the news for the first time. But this was no doubt an emotional celebration, decades in the making, following the death of Fidel Castro. 8th Street turned into an impromptu parade in the wee hours of Saturday morning as the news of Fidel Castro's death began to spread. Generations of Cuban Americans like Franklin Machado and his mother were here to celebrate the passing of the once oppressive dictator.
It's a momentous occasion, not only for my family, but for the Cuban Americans and even the Cubans in general over there in Cuba, because it's an end of a dictator, tyranny that's been oppressive to the Cuban people, I mean, for about over 50 years now.
What does this name mean to you?
Estoy muy contenta.
She's very happy, ecstatic,
Porque el tirano cayó.
because the tyranny has fallen.
Police closed streets between 34th and 37th Avenue on 8th Street, where cheering, live music, and a crowd moved back and forth along the roads of Little Havana.
Some people say that we're not supposed to celebrate anybody's death, but we have to, because they had too many criminals. Castro have made too many things against the Cuban people.
It was a feeling of oneness, really. It was happiness was in the air, love was in the air, freedom was in the air, you know, but something that's always been there, but maybe the Cuban people forgot what it really was to feel that because of the lies dictated by a certain individual.
Although the crowd has thinned out, the city of Miami is expecting the numbers to rise once people begin to wake up and hear the news for the first time. But Commissioner Francis Suarez says they're prepared.
We're all hands on deck. We're every hand on deck. We have a huge force of officers here, and we're monitoring, everything that's going on in the city to make sure that everything is peaceful.
Once again, you're taking a live look from our chopper cam above 8th Street. Obviously, a much thinner crowd. They will expect those numbers to grow, as we heard Commissioner Francis Suarez there. He did say over the next 24 hours they will be monitoring the situation, giving it the utmost respect it deserves. They want to make sure that people celebrate and react the way they want to. But back out here on the ground in front of Cafe Versailles, you can see the line is building right now for coffee. The window opened up at 7 a.m. I spoke to one worker here. They said despite the anticipations of high crowds, they're going to open up at 8 a.m., have normal, regular business hours as they would on a normal Saturday. So if you come down here on a Saturday morning and get your coffee and breakfast, you can still do that despite the normal celebrations going on here. But once again, well over 1,000 people here throughout the night. We got here around 1:30, and basically they had the rope off from 34th Ave to 37th as people continue to march up and down in a very peaceful, though large, celebration. Guys?
Mike, it is surprising to see how much the crowd has thinned out compared to last night before sunrise, before the sun came up. What was the sense you got? Are people going home to get some sleep and coming back out, or did you get the sense that a lot of people hadn't found out about the news yet?
Well, it seemed like talking to some of the people here that they were either out or already in bed and then came out here and basically held strong till about 5 in the morning. Then they probably went home to get some rest. But I can tell you this, in the last half hour, they've started to play music again at some of the shops across the street here from Versailles. So while it is a smaller crowd, it does feel like people are starting to come out and experience the reaction for themselves. And as you heard Francis Suarez say, they're expecting the crowds to grow again.
Talk to us, Mike, about some of the reaction that you're hearing from people there who have been there all night long, the celebratory nature of this. And I know from speaking to the Cuban exile community, members of that community here in South Florida, that depending on how old you are, really does sort of dictate how you feel and the depth of feelings that you have towards Fidel Castro.
Well, it definitely does, and we spoke to people across multiple generations. We spoke to people who had to flee Cuba back in the 1950s, 1960s. They were out here celebrating, and some of their children said they wanted to be here because they wanted to see the reaction of their parents. They wanted to make sure they fully understood what it meant for them to leave because of the oppression they faced under Fidel Castro and his dictatorship. And then we even spoke to one young lady who left 5 years ago and said the difference between the United States and Cuba, I mean, is really immeasurable, and she couldn't imagine not coming here. Even her family was split up for a number of years until they could finally come together, and that was just 5 years ago. So while this is spread across numerous generations, it seems like they all can grasp it in their own way, and they come together and they're celebrating this this historical event.
Mike Cugno, live at Cafe Versailles. Thank you so much.